A mysterious figure broke into this hot and humid rainforest. He was after the giant legendary python. This wasn't just any ordinary snake. It was priceless beyond measure. Catching one alive would set him up for life in luxury, but right after the boatman dropped them off at their destination, he suddenly turned greedy and demanded double the fee. Among the group was a man named Tom. He hated nothing more than this kind of last-minute price gouging scumbag. In the next split second, a cold glint flashed. The boatman's head rolled onto the ground. Tom kicked it into the river with one foot, where it became a feast for the fish and shrimp. This ruthless and decisive move scared the daylights out of his companions standing nearby. They didn't dare mention the 50-50 split deal ever again, not even daring to breathe too loudly. Then the three men ventured deep into the jungle. A sticky liquid dripped slowly from the dead branches, giving off a strange, fishy stench. The others found the smell disgusting, but Tom leaned in to take a whiff. His eyes instantly lit up with wild excitement. This was the female python's pheromones, an aphrodisiac that drove every male python absolutely crazy. It's said that a single adult female python could lure over a dozen male pythons to compete for her mate at the same time. One of the companions suddenly muttered, "Man, that's one strong scent." Before long, Tom spotted an eerie, sinister-looking statue. It was the symbol of the giant snake's territory. Next to the statue lay a huge snake skin. Its scales shimmered with a dark red glow, thick enough to match the waist of a grown man. So the red-scaled giant python really did exist. But just then, one of the men slipped. His foot missed its step, and he accidentally tumbled into a hidden cave. This was no ordinary cave. It was clearly a snake's breeding den. Hundreds of venomous snakes coiled together inside, flicking their tongues non-stop in a dense mass. The sight made people's scalps tingle. When Tom and his companion saw this, their eyes immediately lit up like light bulbs. These wild venomous snakes, any single one of them could fetch a fortune. The two men quickly pulled out sacks, shuffling the snakes inside frantically without a second thought. They wished they could pack the entire cave full of snakes and take them away. When the two men carried their two bulging sacks of snakes back to the riverbank, they were petrified by the sight in front of them. The boatman's corpse that had been thrown into the river earlier was standing straight up in the shallow water, half of his body sticking out motionless. This extremely bizarre scene made the Thai guy drop his sack in a panic. He spun around and ran madly into the jungle. The calm water suddenly surged with huge waves. A dark shadow shot out of the water in an instant, then vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, on the other side, Mark finally tracked down the legendary patterned giant python. The snake was astonishingly massive. On its round, bloated belly, there was a twisted human face printed clearly. The sight was utterly terrifying. In the blink of an eye, the giant python coiled tightly around Mark, unleashing its deadly constriction. His underling let out a blood-curdling scream as his bones were crushed, but Tom just stood by and watched. Listen to that beautiful sound of bones snapping. When a giant python is feeding, it's completely focused. This was the perfect chance to strike, but just as Tom raised his tranquilizer gun, ready to pull the trigger, a monkey suddenly darted down from the trees. The patterned giant python, which had been about to enjoy its big meal, seemed to receive some kind of warning signal. It immediately released its prey. Right after that, the entire jungle descended into chaos. Countless birds and animals fled in all directions. The real giant snake king had finally appeared. At the same time, a folk circus was getting ready to sail to Thailand for a performance, but coffins drifted in front of them and blocked their way. Paul wanted to take a detour, but the ringmaster refused to agree. Not a single day can be wasted. The buyers can't wait any longer. The word buyers that slipped out of the ringmaster's mouth made Elsa and Paul suspicious. But right away, the ringmaster corrected himself and said that the investors couldn't wait. "I've already arranged the venue and the stage. If we delay even one day, the whole plan will go down the drain. I don't have to get past this now." Paul had no choice but to take out some dynamite. He told Xiaohan and Andre from the circus to take a small boat over. They were going to blast a path through. "Are you sure you know how to handle that stuff?" "Don't worry about Isham, a total pro at this." The man stuck the dynamite into the cracks of the coffin lids. Then he attached a detonator to it. But underwater, something was watching their every single move. Once the two men got back to the big ship, Paul pressed a button. As the explosion went off, countless baby snakes fell from the sky and covered the entire deck. It turned out that pile of coffins was actually a breeding ground for giant pythons to hatch their young. The baby snakes that didn't get killed in the blast kept falling onto the ship, and they wrapped themselves around anyone they saw, especially people who were wearing less clothing. When Elsa saw what was happening, she quickly turned on the water valves and sprayed water wildly. That's how she managed to drive the baby snakes on the deck down into the river. But the ringmaster, who had hidden himself in the cabin, was targeted by a venomous snake. He quickly grabbed a fork nearby, trying to stab the venomous snake to death. Instead, he ended up poking a hole in the top of the boat, and it was instantly swarmed by snakes. The panicked ringmaster jumped into the river right away. He swam as hard as he could toward the opposite bank, but then he ran into Tom. Tom had been stranded on the shore for several days because he had gotten lost, but it seemed like Tom and the ringmaster had known each other for a long time. The moment Tom stepped onto the ship, he exchanged a quick glance with the ringmaster. Just then, Bob suddenly collapsed to the ground. "There's something on Bob's ear. Let me take a look at it." Bob felt something wriggling around inside his ear. Tom pulled Bob's earlobe open to check. Immediately, he cut his own finger with a knife. Once the blood started flowing out, he stuck his finger into Bob's ear. Then he slowly pulled it back out. Unbelievably, what came out along with his finger was actually a tiny little snake. "You little guy, you're already this bloodthirsty when you're still so small. Whoa, Daddy, you can do the trick too. I'm a wilderness adventure enthusiast. I know a few survival skills here and there." Elsa thought Tom had a really ruthless vibe about him. It didn't look like an adventure at all. The ringmaster told her not to overthink things. But as it turned out, that night, Tom actually took Paul's body and used it as bait. Then he hung the corpse on a fishhook and sank it into the river. As soon as dawn broke, Tom started chopping up fish. Then he threw the fish meat toward Paul's corpse. The smell of fish blood would soon attract predators, but since this creature likes to eat humans, the only way to catch it is to use a human as bait. So a few days earlier, the ringmaster and Tom had set up this whole scheme to lure people here. Once they saw that all their targets had arrived, Tom pretended like he didn't know the ringmaster at all. Suddenly, a giant python lunged at the corpse at lightning speed. "Got it!" Elsa asked him what he was planning to do. "Don't pull any crazy stunts on our ship. Otherwise, we'll all be in serious danger." But no one dared to step forward during such a heart-stopping scene. No one had any idea what exactly was lurking underwater. Just as Tom was starting to run out of strength, the water suddenly went completely still. Tom thought the giant python was dead, so he let his guard down. But the very next second, the rope holding the corpse was yanked violently. The winch also started shaking violently right along with it. The giant python wasn't dead at all. In fact, it was completely enraged. The giant python tracked Tom around, crashing into everything in his path. In no time at all, Tom stopped moving. Everyone on the ship thought Tom had been swallowed whole by the giant python, but then he popped back up to the surface and quickly climbed onto a small boat. Then he picked up a fork and stared intently at the water below. As soon as the giant python got close to the boat, Tom stabbed at it fiercely. The fork pierced right through the giant python's body, but the pain only made it even angrier. The next second, the giant python surged out of the water and coiled itself tightly around Tom, pinning him to the boat. It didn't take long for the python to dip the small boat upside down and sink it underwater. After a moment, the water went still again. Everyone on the big ship was frowning in terror. They all thought Tom was dead, but before long, he climbed back onto the big ship. No one had any idea how Tom had managed to escape underwater. But right after that, a hissing sound came from behind them. When the ringmaster saw Paul's corpse, he was so scared that he turned around and ran. But the giant python had already memorized his scent. It quickly chased him into the cabin. Tom grabbed an iron fork in a hurry. He kept making aggressive movements with it, trying to lure the giant python out onto the deck. But Bob and Jesse, who had hidden themselves away, were still discovered by the giant python. Watching its prey escape, the giant python immediately focused all its strength on its head, getting ready to lift the roof of the boat right off and have a feast. But when it rammed its head forward with all its might, its neck got stuck between the wooden planks. Tom quickly threw a lasso, but just as Tom was about to succeed, the python's tail knocked over a gasoline barrel. The big ship burst into flames in an instant. Tom was even blown into the water by the explosion. The giant python that Tom had been so close to capturing was soon burned to death. Everyone on the ship jumped into the river quickly. That's how they managed to save their own lives. The deep water was full of hidden dangers. They had no choice but to follow Tom into the rainforest. But the land wasn't safe either. Andre was quickly swept away by something. Everyone was so scared that they didn't dare to stay there any longer. As soon as dawn broke, they took a shortcut down to the river, planning to cross the rainforest by walking through the shallow water. But little did they know, they hadn't gone very far when the ringmaster got into trouble again. "Do you hear that sound of bones cracking? That's so damn brutal." Well, isn't this just how people eat too? Taking advantage of the giant python's feeding time, everyone quickly got out of there. Luckily for them, they soon spotted Tom's package not far away. They had thought they would be able to get out of this hellhole right away, but then Tom suddenly pulled out a gun. It turned out that the ringmaster had betrayed them a long time ago. He had even smeared male python pheromones all over their bodies, trying to lure the scarlet anaconda out. But the one that showed up instead was another female python. The ringmaster grabbed a rope and it not far away, planning to drop a net over the female python while it was eating. Even if it wasn't the scarlet anaconda, other female pythons were still valuable. But what he didn't expect was that a male python was keeping watch up in the trees. The net suddenly fell down and trapped Bob and Shellhan. The female python sensed the danger and immediately slithered into the jungle and disappeared. Tom thought he had failed again this time. Little did he know that the female python had already circled around behind him. Everyone thought Tom was as good as dead, but instead, he pulled out a short knife and cut the female python's head clean off. After that, he set up a dense steel wire trap above the scarlet anaconda's lair. He even lowered 3 people down at once as bait, and he threw the freshly cut off female python's head right at their feet. This was his last chance. He had to succeed. There was no other option. Then, he set up an even more elaborate trap all around. This was supposed to be his final chance to catch the giant snake. Sure enough, it wasn't long before that giant snake finally woke up from its slumber in the depths of hell. But the inexperienced rookies standing right in front of it had tried to get to the snake first. But before they even had a chance to take a bite, they were so scared by the snake's overwhelming aura